We've always been told that the refrigerator is the heart of preservation. Whenever we bring home fresh meat, milk, or fruit, the rule is simple. Just slide it into that big electric box and it'll stay good for a few more days. Cold equals safe. That's what we've trusted for decades. But is that really so? The truth is the fridge isn't a magic shield. In fact, some of the foods we routinely chill lose not just flavor, but the very nutrients our bodies need. Cold air can dull enzymes, dry natural oils, and even make starch turn into unwanted sugar. We think we're protecting freshness, but sometimes we're quietly dismantling it. Don't get me wrong, refrigeration changed modern life. It saves millions from spoilage and illness. But not everything belongs in that cold drawer. And in this video, we'll reveal 7 foods you should never refrigerate, and 3 you absolutely should, so your kitchen stays balanced, fresh, and full of real flavor. Number 1. Tomatoes. The first one may surprise you. It's tomato. Yes, I know I used to do it too. Every time I came back from the store with a few bright red ones still cool from the produce section, I'd slide them straight into the fridge. It just felt responsible. Cold equals fresh, that's what we were all taught. Keep it chilled, keep it safe. Simple, right? But here's what I never realized. Tomatoes aren't meant for the cold. They're warm climate fruit alive with enzymes that keep developing even after picking. When they're placed in a fridge below 55 degrees Fahrenheit, those enzymes shut down. The natural ripening stops. The sugars don't form. The acids dull out. And what's left is a tomato that looks the same on the outside, but inside the flavor collapses. The texture turns mealy, almost like wet bread. You can't see it at first, but you'll taste it the moment you slice in. Scientists from the University of Florida tested this years ago and found that tomatoes stored in the cold lose up to 2/3 of their aroma, compounds the very chemicals that make them smell and taste like a tomato. Once those are gone, no amount of warming brings them back. The cold doesn't just pause flavor, it deletes it. After knowing that, I started changing how I store them. Now I keep my tomatoes in a shallow basket on the counter stem, side up away from direct sunlight. They stay firm, their color deepens, and they actually continue ripening naturally. If I need to slow that down, I put them in a simple paper bag for a day or two. It's less about fancy storage tricks and more about trusting their rhythm the way they were meant to breathe. And something else happened after I stopped refrigerating them. The taste reminded me of summer again. That rich scent when you slice into one, the slight tang at the back of your tongue, it all came back. A small change, but it made every salad and sandwich feel real again. Turns out I'm not the only one who learned that lesson. Many home cooks, especially older generations, never kept tomatoes cold. They lined them on windowsills, on shelves, even wrapped them in newspaper if the weather turned cool. Those weren't outdated habits. They were quiet forms of wisdom, ways to respect food before machines took over the job. Because sometimes warmth keeps more truth than cold. And speaking of old kitchen wisdom, there's another food that suffers the same quiet mistake, one that changes its taste before it even hits the pan. Number 2, potato. Have you ever put a potato inside the fridge? If the answer is yes, you may want to change that habit. What seems harmless is quietly changing what's inside every bite. According to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, when potatoes are stored below 45 degrees Fahrenheit, the starch inside them turns into sugar. And when those sugars hit high heat, like when frying or roasting, they form a compound called acrylamide. Scientists have studied this for years. It's not something you can taste or smell, but it's there forming when sugars and amino acids react under heat. In small amounts, it's normal. But over time, too much can put extra stress on your nerves and digestion, and for people who eat fried potatoes, often it's worth noticing. Cold doesn't make potatoes fresher, it changes their chemistry. What should be soft, earthy, and balanced becomes sweet, uneven, and dark when cooked. You might have noticed your fries browning too quickly or your mashed potatoes tasting oddly sugary. That's the starch to sugar shift at work. The lower the temperature, the faster it happens. Even though the fridge feels safe, it's quietly trading freshness for sweetness and balance for bitterness. I once asked my neighbor, a woman in her 70s who's been cooking her whole life, if she ever kept hers in the fridge. She laughed and said, "Not once." She still keeps them in paper bags under her sink, cool, but not cold. The last time she fried a bat, she said the kitchen smelled like her childhood, rich, buttery, and clean. She told me I like knowing what my food tastes like before the world started complicating it. Since then, I've done the same. A dark corner, a paper bag, and some air, that's all potatoes ever needed. They last weeks, and when cooked, the taste feels honest again. No strange sweetness, no bitter edges, just the familiar warmth we grew up with. Because the truth is, cold doesn't always mean care. Sometimes it's just habit wearing a modern face. And if we keep chilling everything that once grew from the ground, Maybe the real flavor we've been missing isn't lost, it's just waiting quietly at room temperature. Number 3. Onions. Imagine you're watching television. Inside, a housewife takes a whole white onion from the cooling drawer. It shines on the chopping board, clean and perfect, ready to elevate everything she's about to cook. Appealing, right? No, that's a trick. In fact, you should never put your onion inside the fridge. Cold air changes onions more than we think. It looks fine when you take it out firm, glossy, easy to slice, but the first cut tells a different story. The layers feel rubbery, the texture soft instead of crisp. When you cook it, the change becomes clearer. Instead of sizzling into golden sweetness, the onions release water. They steam instead of caramelize. The smell is sharp, but hollow, missing that gentle sweetness that makes a dish come alive. What you're tasting isn't flavor, it's fatigue. The National Onion Association says whole, unpeeled onions should be kept in a cool, dry place, ideally around 45 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, not in the fridge. Humidity inside that cold drawer makes the outer skin absorb moisture and slowly rot from within. Mold starts forming between layers long before you can see it. That's why an onion that once felt solid can suddenly turn soft and sour overnight. And beyond the taste, there's something else. When onions spoil in cold, damp air, they start releasing compounds that irritate your stomach and nose when cooked. You might not notice it right away, maybe a little bitterness or a smell that stings more than usual. But it's there. Worse, that same trapped moisture becomes a playground for bacteria, especially if your onions share space with fresh fruits or greens. Cold feels safe, but it's the perfect setup for slow decay. I once heard a chef explain it perfectly. An onion is like a sponge for air, she said. Trap it and it chokes. Let it breathe and it sings. She keeps hers in open baskets by the stove where the air moves and the skins stay dry. Every time she cooks, the sound of onions hitting the pan is clean, that soft crackle, that rising sweetness. People chase flavor with spices, she told me, but real flavor starts with how you treat what's basic. And right beside those onions sits another bulb that suffers the same mistake, only this one doesn't just soften. It starts to wake before you're ready. Number 4. Garlic. Have you ever felt that strange bitterness after eating a meal full of garlic? That sharp aftertaste that lingers in your mouth, almost metallic, almost sour? Maybe it's not the recipe. Maybe it's because you've been storing your garlic in the fridge. An old home cook once told me I never put garlic in the fridge, that's how you make it grow, not keep it. He's right. Cold doesn't preserve garlic, it confuses it. Inside the chill, the bulb thinks spring has arrived early. It starts to wake, to sprout, to change. What looks like a clean white clove begins pushing out a small green shoot from the middle, and from that point on, it's no longer the same garlic you bought. Once refrigerated, garlic begins to sprout because the cold triggers natural growth hormones. Its starch turns into sugar, changing both flavor and chemistry. The cloves start breaking down faster, releasing stronger sulfur compounds, the reason why that once sweet aroma now smells harsh and leaves a burning aftertaste. Cold, damp air inside the fridge also encourages mold between the thin layers of skin, even when the outside looks fine. And according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture, whole bulbs should be stored around 60 to 65 degrees Fahrenheit, not below. Garlic in oil left too long in the cold can even cause botulism, a toxin that grows without oxygen, completely invisible to the eye. You can taste the difference the moment it touches the pan. Fresh, well-kept garlic turns golden, slowly filling the room with a soft, nutty scent that makes you hungry before you even sit down. But when it's been chilled too long, it browns in seconds, turning bitter and smoky. The smell goes from warm to sharp, from comforting to heavy. It doesn't lift the dish, it overpowers it. Garlic isn't fragile, it's alive. It doesn't need saving, it needs space. Keep it in a basket, open and dry, away from sunlight. Let it breathe, let it rest, let it stay asleep until you wake it with a knife. That's where the true flavor lives, in patience, not panic. Because the colder you make it, the faster you wake it. And once it wakes, you can't ever put it back to sleep. Number 5, basil. You should never put spices inside the fridge. Basil is one of the clearest examples. It's not just another herb to toss in with your vegetables, it's alive. It breathes, it grows, and it dies fast when it's cold. Yet most of us, without a second thought, take those bright green leaves home, wrap them in plastic, and tuck them in the fridge like we're keeping them safe. The next day, what greets us isn't freshness. It's the quiet proof that we were wrong. Basil comes from warmth. It thrives in sunlight, dry air, and movement. The moment it enters the cold, its cells begin to collapse. Scientists call it chilling injury, a fancy term for a simple truth: basil doesn't survive the cold. Below 50 degrees Fahrenheit, the leaves begin to bruise inside out. By the next morning, their shine dulls, their fragrance vanishes, and a brown shadow creeps across the veins. It's not slow decay, it's a sudden heartbreak. Researchers at the University of California's Post-Harvest Center discovered that basil stored below 50 degrees loses its color and aroma within 24 hours. The science behind it is simple. Cold air ruptures the oil glands that carry the herb's signature scent, the peppery, slightly sweet mix of linalool and eugenol. Once those oils are gone, so is the soul of the leaf. No reheating, no blending, no quick fix can ever bring that flavor back. You can see it too. Fresh basil feels dry yet springy. It tears clean, releasing that gentle green perfume that fills a kitchen in seconds. Cold basil is limp and clammy. It tears like paper soaked in water. And the smell, it's not basil anymore, just something faint, almost metallic, like the memory of flavor that forgot what it was supposed to be. I remember watching a friend cook once a quiet night, soft light in the kitchen. He took out his basil from the fridge, smiling like he was about to crown his dish. The pasta steamed, the sauce shimmered, everything looked perfect. But when the leaves hit the pan, nothing happened. No scent, no color, no lift. The air stayed still. He frowned and whispered, "It doesn't smell right, does it?" That's when he knew. Basil doesn't belong in the cold. It's not built for silence. The moment you hide it there, you strip away what makes it real, its warmth, its fragrance, and its living soul. Number 6, coffee. There's nothing like opening a new bag of coffee. The moment the seal breaks, the air changes. It's warm, nutty, and sweet, a mix of roasted almonds, cocoa, and something faintly floral you can never quite name. You close your eyes and it feels like morning itself, calm, inviting, alive. Every scent promises comfort, energy, and ritual, but that beauty disappears the moment you put those beans inside the fridge. Cold air doesn't protect coffee, it suffocates it. Inside that chill, beans start to sweat. The natural oils that once shimmered on their surface begin to fade. The aroma you loved, that burst of life when you opened the bag, turns faint and hollow. It's still coffee, but stripped of its warmth. You can taste it in every cup. The body thins out, the smell weakens, and the finish turns bitter, like something left unfinished. What once woke you up now just fills the mug. The National Coffee Association warns that refrigeration doesn't preserve freshness, it destroys it. Each time you take beans in and out of the fridge, condensation forms on their surface. Those tiny droplets dissolve the aromatic oils that carry flavor, body, and balance. Even airtight jars can't fully stop it. Moisture always finds its way in, and flavor quietly finds its way out. Coffee is a living thing, chemically speaking. It holds more than 800 aromatic compounds, each one fragile, each one reacting to light, air, and water. When beans are exposed to cold, then warmth, then cold again, oxidation speeds up. The delicate molecules that bring out notes of chocolate and caramel begin to break down. Sweetness turns sharp, acidity spikes, and bitterness takes over. The fridge doesn't preserve freshness, it ages it in disguise. You can sense the loss before you even taste it. Fresh beans fill a room with aroma that clings to your hands and clothes. Fridge-kept beans. They smell faint, almost like wet paper, or the inside of a jar that's been open too long. Brew them, and you'll feel the difference. The sound is the same, but the soul is gone. A barista once told me coffee breathes. It hates being trapped. She smiled and said, "Once those oils freeze, you can grind, brew, pray it won't come back." Cold air doesn't save coffee. It silences it. Number 7, honey. We've been told for years that honey belongs in the fridge. You've seen it in commercials, that perfect golden jar sitting next to butter and milk, glowing softly under the cold light. It looks clean, organized, and safe. The image feels right. But it isn't truth, it's advertising psychology. Somewhere along the way, we started believing that cold means pure, that the fridge is where cleanliness lives, where freshness survives, where time can't touch what we love. The fridge became more than an appliance, it became a symbol of control. If something is in there, it's protected. And that belief is exactly how we ended up putting honey, one of nature's most stable, self-preserving foods, where it never needed to be. The truth is, honey doesn't spoil. It never has. Archaeologists have found jars of honey in Egyptian tombs that were still edible after 3,000 years. Its low moisture and natural acidity make it hostile to bacteria. But the marketing world never told us that, because room temperature doesn't sell. Cold and clean does. Brands placed honey next to dairy, not for accuracy, but for trust. The same cool glow that sells milk also sells the illusion of safety. And we bought it not out of ignorance, but out of care. Keeping food cold makes us feel responsible, even moral. It's our quiet ritual of hygiene. We do it because it feels right, not because it is. And that's where the trick lies, the illusion of purity. In truth, honey doesn't need our protection, it only needs our patience. It thickens, it hardens, it changes, but that's part of its nature. The fridge doesn't preserve honey, it punishes it. The National Honey Board says honey should never be refrigerated. Cold makes it crystallize faster, dulls its color, and kills its smoothness. Room temperature 50 to 70 degrees. Fahrenheit keeps it perfect for years. But this isn't about temperature. It's about trust. Honey is one of the few foods nature made complete. It doesn't need help, only understanding. So leave it on your shelf. Let it rest, breathe, and shine. If it hardens, that's not decay, that's proof of life. Warm it gently, and it returns as sweet and golden as before. The fridge made us forget one thing: purity was never cold. We've spent time uncovering the foods that suffer in the cold, the ones that lose their taste, texture, and spirit once they meet the fridge. But the truth goes both ways. Some foods actually depend on that chill, not for comfort, but for safety. The same cold air that ruins honey or basil is what keeps milk from spoiling, eggs from turning, and certain fruits from fermenting. In other words, the fridge isn't the enemy, it's just misunderstood. So now let's turn the page from what should stay out to the few things that truly belong inside. Number 8, dairy products. If the last few foods warned us to keep them out of the fridge, this one reminds us why the cold was invented in the first place. Because when it comes to milk, yogurt, and cheese, cold isn't a mistake, it's mercy. Dairy is alive. Not in the poetic sense, but biologically. It's full of proteins, fats, and natural sugars that bacteria love. At room temperature, those microbes grow faster than we can see and faster than we expect. Leave milk out for just 2 hours on a warm day, and you're already in the danger zone. That smooth white liquid starts turning into a perfect home for Listeria, E. coli, and Salmonella. They don't need much, just time and warmth. That's why refrigeration isn't about convenience. It's about safety. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration advises that all perishable dairy products stay below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, about 4 degrees Celsius. Even pasteurized milk, which has been heated to kill bacteria, can turn quickly once opened. The moment air and light touch it, the countdown begins. Yogurt and cheese are no different. The more moisture they hold, the faster they spoil without cold. That creamy texture we love. It's exactly what bacteria love too. At higher temperatures, milk sugars called lactose start breaking down into lactic acid. The result? That sour smell, that grainy texture, that faint curdling on your tongue. Yogurt separates into watery layers and soft cheese starts to sweat. In just a few hours, what was food becomes risk. Cold stops that process almost completely. It slows the enzymes, halts bacterial growth, and preserves the clean flavor we expect each morning. You can see it in the small things: a glass of cold milk that tastes crisp and pure, a slice of cheese that stays smooth, yogurt that keeps its gentle tang without bitterness. The fridge doesn't make dairy eternal, but it buys time, and sometimes that time is everything. So if there's one place where cold still means care, it's here. Keep milk, cheese, and yogurt in the coldest part of the fridge, not the door. Close the lid tight after every use. Avoid sudden temperature changes and never put them back after hours outside. Cold won't make them last forever, but it will keep them safe, clean, and true to taste. Number 9, eggs. Eggs are strange things, too fragile to leave out, too misunderstood to handle right. Some people keep them on the counter, others in the fridge. So which is correct? The answer depends on what happens to them long before they reach your kitchen. In the US, eggs are washed and sanitized before they're sold. The process looks clean, but it removes something important, a natural waxy layer called the cuticle. That thin film seals the shell's pores, keeping bacteria out. Once it's gone, the shell becomes porous, and moisture or microbes can slip through. That's why US eggs must be refrigerated. While in many European countries, unwashed eggs can safely stay on the counter. Their protective layer is still there, doing what nature intended. The U.S. Department of Agriculture requires that eggs be kept below 45 degrees Fahrenheit after processing. Leave them out for more than 2 hours, and bacteria like Salmonella can multiply enough to make them unsafe. The danger doesn't come from the egg itself, but from what the air does to it. Temperature changes are the real problem. When a cold egg is left out, moisture forms on the shell, a thin layer of condensation that acts like a bridge for bacteria. It helps them move through the shell's microscopic pores straight to the inside. That's why consistent cold isn't just for freshness, it's protection. You can tell the difference in the kitchen. Crack open a fresh chilled egg, and it opens clean. The yolk sits tall and round the whites stay firm and bright. But an egg that's been stored wrong spreads out thin, the yolk flattening as soon as it hits the pan. It's subtle, but the sizzle sounds different, softer, less alive. A home baker once told me she always keeps her eggs in the same place, middle shelf, never the door. It's not superstition, she said. It's control. The door lies. It's never cold enough. She's baked for 20 years, and her cakes rise the same every time. So here's the simple rule. Keep eggs in their original carton on a middle shelf where the temperature stays steady. Never wash them before storing, it removes their last bit of defense. And if you buy unwashed eggs from a farm, keep them cool but not icy. Once washed, always cold. It's the simplest way to keep them safe and whole. 10 fresh meats and seafoods. Unlike honey or basil meat and seafood don't forgive. Leave them out for a few hours, and the danger begins quietly. For these foods, the fridge isn't a choice. It's protection. Meat and fish are made of what bacteria love most: water, protein, and fat. The moment they sit in warm air, those tiny invisible guests wake up. They grow faster than we imagine. Within just a couple of hours, a fresh cut of beef or a piece of salmon can already start to change. The color dulls, the smell shifts, the surface turns slightly slick. It looks small, harmless even. But under that sheen, something is happening that no seasoning or pan can undo. The U.S. Department of Agriculture warns that raw meat and seafood must be kept below 40 degrees Fahrenheit, around 4 degrees Celsius. Above that, bacteria multiply roughly every 20 minutes. It's not about taste anymore, it's about time. Once the temperature rises, freshness starts counting backward. I remember one summer evening after a family cookout. I had a small bag of shrimp sitting on the counter while we cleaned up. We laughed, washed dishes, and didn't think twice about it. 3 hours later, I tossed them into a pan. They looked fine. They even smelled fine. But that night, I didn't feel fine. It wasn't food poisoning in the dramatic sense, just hours of nausea that made me understand something simple. Freshness isn't always visible. Since that day, I never gamble with the cold again. Refrigeration isn't just about slowing time, it's about stopping what we can't see. Once meat warms up, its juices start to feed the very bacteria that spoil it. Fish turns even faster. Its natural oils react with air, and the clean ocean scent becomes something sharp and metallic. People think cooking fixes everything, but it doesn't. Heat kills bacteria, yes, but not the toxins they leave behind. You can tell true freshness with your hands and nose. Cold meat feels firm and dry, never sticky. Fish should smell like seawater, not like fish. When you touch it, it should spring back, not sink. Those small details are nature's way of whispering the truth. Because for meat and seafood, cold isn't luxury. It's memory, protection, and respect for the time that made them fresh in the first place. At the end of the day, it's not about blaming the fridge or doubting what we've been told. It's about paying closer attention. Every food has its own rhythm, its own rules of care. Some thrive in the cold, others lose themselves there. The mistake isn't storing things wrong, it's never asking why. The truth is simple: the more we understand what we eat, the better it tastes, the longer it lasts, and the safer it becomes. Learning how to treat food properly isn't science reserved for chefs, it's everyday wisdom. Knowing when to chill, when to breathe, when to trust warmth, that's what makes a kitchen alive. So open the fridge, check the shelf, listen to your ingredients. They've been speaking all along, we just forgot to listen.
This video does not promote division within the United States or encourage education. All content is presented for the purpose of exploration, analysis, and fostering discussion based on current events, public sentiment, and social trends. We fully respect the United States Constitution and all federal regulations. If today's analysis made you think, drop a comment so we can keep the conversations going. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you will never miss our next independent deep dive.